Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. If you're passionate about South African politics, African pride, and the legacy of powerful figures who continue to shape public discourse long after leaving office, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments, do you think Jacob Zuma's legacy is misunderstood, misrepresented, or truly Pan-African? Now, let's get into today's story, which has once again placed the Zuma family at the center of headlines, only this time, not because of court battles, political faction fights, or the MK party's rise. No, this time the spotlight comes from something far more symbolic, yet surprisingly powerful, a market. Yes, a market, located not in Kandla, not in Durban, but all the way in Gabon, Central Africa. Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla, daughter of former South African President Jacob Zuma, recently took to her social media platform, X, formerly known as Twitter, to share what she described as a remarkable discovery during her visit to Gabon. The tweet read, "President Zuma is loved on the continent. There is a Jacob Zuma Market in Gabon." She accompanied the post with a photo showing a market sign bearing her father's name. Immediately, the post sparked widespread interest, admiration, and of course, controversy. Some praised it as a proud moment not only for the Zuma family but for South Africa, an apparent symbol of how Zuma's Pan-African influence still endures. Others, however, raised eyebrows, questioning the authenticity of the claim and whether the so-called market was anything more than a small vendor stand with a sign. Supporters, many of them Zuma loyalists, were quick to jump in with praise. One user commented, "This is iconic. Zuma's impact goes beyond borders." Another called him a true African giant, arguing that the rest of the continent sees the real value that South Africans often overlook. In this group's eyes, Zuma remains a revolutionary figure, someone who challenged Western imperialism and pushed hard for African unity, even if his presidency ended in scandal and allegations of state capture. It's important to remember that Jacob Zuma has long projected himself as a defender of African interests, often clashing with global financial institutions and international powers. His foreign policy leaned toward solidarity with the global South, forging ties with BRICS countries and promoting the idea of African self-determination. In that context, it's not too far-fetched to imagine that there are Africans outside of South Africa who still view him in a positive light. But as always, the internet had a different perspective. Not everyone was convinced. Critics swiftly labeled Duduzile's post as a publicity stunt, a calculated move to shift the narrative and build her father's image as a continental icon ahead of South Africa's 2024 elections. Some users questioned whether a single vendor stall using Zuma's name for marketing purposes really justified calling it a market. One user sarcastically posted, "You mean someone just wrote his name on a board and suddenly it's an official market?" This skepticism is not without merit. It's not uncommon for small stalls across Africa to adopt famous names for attention or marketing value. You'll find Obama hair salons in Kenya, Mandela boutiques in Nigeria, and Gaddafi supermarkets in Ghana. These aren't necessarily political endorsements, they're often just catchy names intended to attract customers. But even if the Jacob Zuma market in Gabon is unofficial or informal, the story has taken on a life of its own, and that's worth unpacking. Symbolism matters, especially in African politics. Names carry weight. A market, a street, or a statue named after someone is more than just a sign, it's a narrative. A message about who we honor and why. What makes this particular case so intriguing is that it's part of a larger pattern. Just recently, Jacob Zuma was seen at the swearing-in of Gabon's transitional president, alongside Duduzile. His appearance raised eyebrows, not only because of his controversial status at home, but because it suggested ongoing diplomatic ties and respect abroad. Why would a foreign government invite Zuma, a man accused of weakening South Africa's institutions, to such a high-profile event? The answer may lie in the difference between domestic and continental perceptions of leadership. Within South Africa, Zuma's reputation is deeply polarizing. To his critics, he embodies state capture, corruption, and governance collapse. But to his supporters, especially those in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of the rural working class, he is a man of the people. And outside South Africa, particularly in regions where strongman politics is still admired, Zuma may be viewed as a symbol of resistance, a leader who stood his ground against global pressure. That makes the Jacob Zuma Market more than just a sign in Gabon. It becomes a symbol of contested legacy. A visual representation of the battle between how Zuma is remembered at home versus how he is remembered abroad. And let's not forget the role of Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla in shaping that legacy. She has been one of the most vocal online defenders of her father, often posting about his political relevance, his international recognition, and the alleged double standards used against him. Some see her as a loyal daughter. Others view her as a spin doctor, trying to rewrite a complicated and controversial history. Either way, she's playing a central role in keeping her father's name alive in the public discourse and, crucially, in African politics. But that raises deeper questions. Should symbolic gestures like this market be enough to rehabilitate a damaged political legacy? Can a market sign erase the years of public inquiry, state capture reports, and unresolved questions surrounding Zuma's presidency? South Africans are still living with the consequences of his rule. From load shedding to economic stagnation to institutional breakdown, many of the country's current struggles are traced back to the Zuma era. And yet, the power of image, the use of platforms like X, the symbolism of international travel, and the clever timing of posts like this one, demonstrates how fluid and manipulatable public memory can be. So where does this leave us? Ultimately, the Jacob Zuma Market in Gabon, whether real or symbolic, raises the curtain on a much bigger issue, the tension between legacy and reality. Between symbolism and accountability. Between how we're remembered and what we've actually done. What do you think? Is this just another example of a political family using social media to spin a legacy? Or does it prove that Jacob Zuma's influence truly stretches across the African continent? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into South African and African politics, and share this with someone who still debates Zuma at the dinner table. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay informed, stay curious, and see you next time.